They say that when love is real, nothing can destroy it. But I see it differently. When two souls recognize each other, does not matter how far apart they drift. Something continues to connect them. And it is not destiny, it is not magic. It is energy in resonance. And that, my friend, does not happen to everyone. It is a rare experience, almost sacred, because not every bond that marks us is the love of our life. I am Magda Kay, a relationship expert, author, and researcher of emotional dynamics between men and women. For years, I have studied attraction, male behavior, emotional intelligence, and the patterns that bring people together or drive them apart. Today, I want to share with you what I have learned through my research, my professional experience, and the thousands of stories I have encountered throughout my journey. Some connections were habit, others were attachment, some were illusions, and others were lessons. But there is something that goes beyond desire, beyond affection, beyond shared history. It is when another person's soul activates parts of you that were asleep, and you do the same in them. A connection forms that cannot be explained. It can only be felt, recognized, and, even when it hurts or confuses, kept somewhere deep in your being, like an eternal echo. Today, I am not going to talk about ordinary relationships. I am going to talk about those connections that change you forever. I want you to ask yourself something as you listen. What if the person who marked you so deeply did not come to stay, but to wake you up? That question changes everything. In my years of research and work with people navigating love, loss, and transformation, I have found that the human soul does not choose with logic. It moves through symbols, through energy, through what I call meaningful convergence. Those meetings that feel like more than coincidence, because something inside you was already aligned before the other person arrived. You were ready, even if you did not know it. That is why when you meet someone and feel an immediate, inexplicable, emotionally powerful connection, you may be living one of those rare moments. The soul does not seek beautiful encounters. It seeks necessary ones. And when the energy of two souls aligns, it does not always mean they are meant to stay together in this life. But something profound is meant to be revealed between them. Think about it for a moment. How many people have passed through your life and stayed? And now think, how many left, but never truly left you? There are bonds that, though brief, leave deeper roots than relationships lasting years. I have observed this time and again in my work. The encounter between two people, when there is real chemistry, not just physical, but energetic, transforms both. That is what happens when two souls align. It is not only love, it is transformation. But I want to be careful here, because not every intense connection is true love. Some are mirrors. Some reflect your unexamined shadow. Others are temporary guides who arrive to help you break a mask you have been wearing for years. And what I find most fascinating is that these connections only become possible when you are in a deep phase of your own growth. Before you can truly find that person, you first have to find yourself. From everything I have studied and witnessed, the soul is not attracted to what it wants. It is attracted to what it needs in order to grow. That is why we are often drawn to people who challenge us, confront us, and expose our oldest wounds, our most denied desires, our deepest fears. And that is where the real work begins. Because when the soul recognizes another, it does not do so by accident. It does so because both are meant to awaken, and the recognition transcends time, physical presence, and distance. The two may not always be able to be together. The timing may never be right. But when there is genuine energetic alignment, something in you opens, and once it opens, you cannot go back. So let me ask you, what if the person who marked your life did not come to complete you, but to reveal that you were already whole? What if they came to show you the part of yourself you had not yet embraced? Because I have seen this in the people I work with. The pain of a deep, impossible love is often the very fire that transforms the soul, not as punishment, as initiation. This is not about convincing you to go back to anyone. This is about helping you understand that you are not crazy, you are not alone, and what you felt, that inexplicable connection, is real. Not because the other person was your destiny, but because you were awakening. And in your awakening, you became sensitive enough to recognize what resonates with your soul. And here is the most beautiful truth I have found. When you vibrate from your authentic self, what is real does not leave, and what leaves was never truly real. True union between souls does not need guarantees. It only needs authenticity. When two people are genuinely centered in themselves, they can walk in parallel, even without touching, because real connection is not possession. It is expansion. If you ever loved from that place, even if the story did not continue, even if the person walked away, what you lived was true. And what is true is not lost. It only changes form. We often believe that the most important person in our life will be the one who stays forever, the one who feels like home, like certainty, like shelter. But through my research and my work, I have come to understand something more radical than that. The most important souls do not always arrive to stay. Sometimes they come only to light a flame inside you that had gone dark, and then they leave. The hardest thing is understanding that the purpose of a deep connection is not always permanence. Sometimes the purpose is awakening, and that awakening hurts. Because when the soul is activated, it stirs everything that was asleep. Old wounds, buried memories, suppressed desires, parts of you hidden out of fear or habit. And when someone arrives and touches those places, you cannot forget them. Because they did not only touch your story, they touched something far deeper in you. This is exactly what happened to Elisa. Lisa was 52 years old when she met him at an event that, on the surface, meant nothing. She had been married for over 20 years. Her children were grown. She had a respectable career, a stable routine. She was not looking for anything. And yet that afternoon, a brief conversation, an intense glance, and an unexpected laugh were enough to break something open inside her. It was not love at first sight. It was not desire. It was something else entirely. Recognition. I knew him, she told me afterward. I just don't know from where. She was not speaking of a past life. She was pointing to something far more intimate. A part of herself she recognized in him. Her creative side. Her unguarded laughter. A freedom she had long ago stopped believing was hers. They were never lovers. They were not even close friends. They crossed paths only a handful of times. But it was enough. Because after that encounter, Elisa could no longer look at herself the same way. What I have come to understand through stories like Elisa's is this. She did not fall in love with him. She rediscovered a part of herself, a buried, forgotten self, and she saw it reflected in him. That projection woke her up. It pulled her out of emotional hibernation and invited her to look at her life through new eyes. Not to leave everything behind, but to return to herself. We do not always understand these connections until years later. But one thing is certain. When another soul truly touches yours, you cannot keep pretending you are asleep. This is why I always encourage people to work with what these connections reveal. Because the person who awakens you does not only show you what you have been missing, they also reveal what you have been avoiding. And in that space lies what I call the real alchemy of the soul. Not in seeking to complete yourself through someone else, but in using the connection as a mirror to find your way back to yourself. Not idealize who touched your soul. Honor what they revealed. And if you feel that person has gone, that they did not return, that the story never finished, perhaps it is because they already fulfilled their role. Not from a place of logic, from a much deeper plane of being. Many people ask me, why did life show me this person if I was not going to keep them? And my answer, every time, is the same. Because there was a part of you that could only be activated by their energy. Not by words. Not by constant presence. Only by the resonance that was generated between you. And once that happened, the transformation was already complete. The soul does not need cohabitation to be touched. It only needs truth. And here is something I have observed again and again in the people I work with. When someone touches our soul, they also touch our darkness. They confront us with our fear of abandonment, our existential emptiness, that nagging sense of having lived only halfway. But that is not a curse. It is an opportunity. Because no one can help you illuminate what you cannot see without a clear enough mirror in front of you. And some people are exactly that, mirrors. Not to love you for a lifetime, but so that you can finally learn to love yourself. So perhaps the connection you have not been able to release is not a wound. Perhaps it is a signal that your soul is ready to integrate, to heal, to complete itself. And the real question is not whether they will come back. The real question is, what did they show you about yourself that you have not yet embraced? If you can answer that, you have already won. Because as long as you keep looking outward for that answer, you will remain tied to the absence. But the moment you begin to look inward, everything shifts. The anxiety quiets. The emptiness fills with meaning. And you understand that the person who touched your soul was, in fact, returning you to yourself. That is the love I believe in. The love that transforms. The love that does not need to possess, only to reveal. Now I want to go deeper. into what I believe is the most profound truth about the fusion of energy between two conscious souls, and why real union only becomes possible when both people have walked their own interior path. This is something I have come to understand not only through research, but through every conversation I have had with people who have loved deeply and lost what they thought they could not survive losing. We often think that true love is the kind that flows without conflict, without rupture, without effort, as if the absence of friction were proof that we have found the right person. But what I have observed tells me something very different. What truly unites two souls is not the absence of tension. It is the shared willingness to face one's own darkness. The real fusion of two souls does not happen because they understand each other perfectly, or because they are alike, or because they never argue. True energetic union only becomes possible when both people have made the journey toward their own center, when they have descended into their shadow and returned with the humility of knowing they are incomplete but willing. In real partnership, the relationship is not the destination. It is the stage where inner transformation becomes visible through the other, where love is not a passing feeling, but an experience of revelation, of psychological nakedness, of mutual growth. When a relationship is born from unconsciousness, when two people choose each other without having done their inner work, what actually happens is a dance of projections. One projects their need for protection. The other projects their fear of abandonment. One projects their mother, the other their father. And both end up trapped in a dynamic that never matures because the other person has stopped being real and has become a screen for unmet needs. But when the energy of two mature souls aligns, when both have passed through their dark night, when they have let go of who they were pretending to be, they are no longer looking to be completed. They recognize themselves as whole. From that place, love becomes real. I believe there is a moment in genuine emotional maturity when a person's inner masculine or feminine, their capacity for strength, softness, assertion, or receptivity, stops being a ghost projected onto a partner and becomes a living force within themselves. Only then can a person love from consciousness, not from need. This means that you, in your most integrated self, do not love because the other gives you something you are missing. You love because you see in them a spark that honors your fire, rather than trying to extinguish or consume it. The energy of two souls aligns when both have learned to hold themselves, when they do not demand to, saved, changed, or filled, when love is not a tool for repair but a space for expansion. And that space is rare, it is sacred, because most people never get there. Most remain trapped in the search for ideal love. But I have learned to distrust ideals. Every ideal, I have found, is an unconscious compensation for something we do not want to see in ourselves. If you idealize a relationship without conflict, perhaps it is because you do not want to face your own anger, your need for control, or your difficulty letting go. If you idealize instant connection, perhaps you fear slow commitment. If you idealize your partner, it may be because you do not yet feel worthy of being loved as you truly are. Real love is not ideal, it is deep, and depth includes contradiction, discomfort, and process. Two souls that have aligned do not need perfect symmetry. They need mutual availability to evolve. That availability is only possible when each person has stopped running from themselves. There is a turning point I have witnessed in many people I have worked with. The moment they stop seeking outside what can only be found within. And it is precisely at that point, once they are no longer looking for a savior or a protector, that they can meet another person as a companion in the journey, not as a cure for their wounds. At this stage, the energy between two people becomes a shared field of awareness, a quiet resonance that is not built on possession, drama, or need. It is built on deep respect for what the other is, and for everything each person has endured to arrive at this moment. It is not a passive connection. It is not a perfect union, but it is real. And what is real is always complex. It always holds a tension of opposites. It always asks for commitment to the most essential part of oneself. That is why, when the energy of two souls truly aligns, something happens that transcends logic. The connection is not born from momentary desire. It is born from the integration of many unconscious layers. You do not align with another soul by chance. You align because you have been through the fire, because your energy is no longer rooted in fear, because your choices are no longer born from scarcity, because you are no longer looking for love. You are offering presence, and only someone who has walked their own path can resonate with you at that level. This is why so often before that person arrives, life asks you to die a little symbolically, to pass through your solitude, to face your darkness, to learn how to give yourself what you were waiting for someone else to give you. And when you finally manage that, it is not that the right soul appears magically. It is that your energy changes. And from that energy, what arrives is coherent with who you are. Honest, real, whole. Every true transformation involves a loss. In love, what must be released are the fantasies, the projections, the childhood attachments. When we release them, we open space for something different. A bond that does not exclude the shadow, that does not fear the truth, that does not need to be perfect in order to be profound. That is the union that nothing can separate. Not because there are no conflicts, but because the bond is built from consciousness, not from blind desire. And when two souls meet in that state, they no longer seek to merge. They choose each other. They love each other. They accompany each other. But each remains themselves. Because they understand that loving is not losing yourself. It is expanding. Kind of love is uncomfortable for the ego, but it is nourishment for the soul. Because it does not fill your voids. It illuminates them. Does not soothe your wounds. It shows you how to hold them yourself. It does not meet your expectations. It responds to your truth. The energy of two aligned souls does not generate attachment. It generates expansion. And expansion always hurts a little, because it means growing, changing, dying, and being reborn many times inside the same body. Real love requires sacrifice, but not physical suffering. It requires the surrender of illusion. The surrender of believing the other will save you. The surrender of always needing control. The surrender of using the other as a crutch to avoid walking your own path. What remains when all of that falls away is something clean. A mature energy, a vibrational field where both people can be who they truly are, without mask, without games, without the need to hide. And there, in that space, nothing can separate them. Not because there is nothing left to unite, but because what already unites them cannot be seen. It can only be felt. You can look into each other's eyes without asking for anything. Because what exists between you does not need to be sustained by promises. It is sustained by presence. And if you have ever felt a connection like that, do not measure it by its duration, or its label, or whether it was returned. Measure it by what it revealed in you, by what it moved, by what still lives inside you. Not all loves are made to last, but some are made to wake you up. And if you were awakened, then that soul is still with you. Because what aligns at the level of the soul never breaks. It only changes form. You do not need to understand it. You only need to honor it. Because there are things the soul knows long before the mind can comprehend them. And everything that truly touched your soul still lives inside you. Nothing, not time, not distance, silence, can separate you from what was real. Because the soul does not love with attachment. It loves with presence, with memory, with energy. And that never dies.